Hello everyone and welcome to my video. In this video I share my story of how I went from having students that were overwhelmed to engaged by making a subtle change in my daily schedule to really make a difference in their cognitive load. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, again, thank you for coming to thank you for stopping in to watch my video, Overwhelmed to Engaged, about cognitive load theory and how we can structure our classes to maybe take a little out of our students' working memory to maybe get a little more out of them in terms of their production and quality of work. So let's get started by talking about what is cognitive load theory. Cognitive load theory is a theory that credit is given to John Sweller. He's an educational psychologist, and the idea behind what he was saying with cognitive load theory is that we as humans, we can only hold so much information in our working memory or our germane memory before it becomes so clogged and full that we essentially just tune out. We can't retain anything else. There's too much already in there. So what he's saying is that maybe in our instructional design practices, or even maybe things when we're creating our classroom structure, in this case, can we do things to help students offload or wipe off some of that whiteboard of memory, if you will, to create a little bit of space to where we can actually add some things into it. Now, if you think about it, you have students that are coming to you, and it doesn't even matter the time of day, whether it's first thing in the morning, later in the afternoon. Their brains they're young kids. Their brains are already full of stuff, right? Their whiteboards could potentially, first thing in the morning, be half full of stuff. And by the time they get to the afternoon, that whiteboard could be completely full. So they're just not taking anything else in. So what can we do as educators to help with that process? How can we help them clear out some of that memory, that germane or that working memory, clear out some of the whiteboard space to allow room for more information to kind of go in, process, move to our long-term memory so we can actually recall it later. So I actually made, and the story I'm going to share with you is this little subtle change, if you will, in my classroom schedule, based on a little bit of feedback that I got from a friend of mine. Based on that conversation, I made a slight change in my daily schedule. I lost a little bit of time along the way in terms of instruction, but what I gained was well worth it. So let's walk through some of those things. So my classroom structure, what does it look like? Well, originally what it looked like, it was come in, get settled, we're going to do our bell ringer, we're going to do our lesson, and then we're going to quickly talk about a couple things, make sure we're good to go, and then we're going to move on. Okay, like everybody else, I did some type of a bell ringer. I wanted to get started, quick recall of information, so that we can make sure we're on the same page and get going, right? We don't want to waste a lot of time. We got a lot of stuff to cover. All of those things that every educator kind of goes through in their mind. Content and curriculum. I got to get through it. I'm going to run out of all of that. So that's what I did. I'm a new teacher, I suppose. I'm about younger, but definitely a newer teacher. This is only my 4th year in the classroom. So after that conversation with Brian, it led me to make a little bit of a subtle change. Okay, I went to something or a schedule that was a warm-up, then a bell ringer, then our activity, and then our feedback. So let's talk about each of those pieces. So the warm-up. What was the warm-up? Well, in talking to Brian, he gave me the idea. He did something called, and I notice and I wonder, where students they look at some type of an image and they just say, what can they actually see? There's no guessing, there's no wondering. What do you actually see in that image? The very first thing that comes to mind that you see, share. And then you ask a question based on that. What do you wonder? If you see something in the picture, then what is it? You see a picture and there's a big thing of ice. I wonder if that's located in the Arctic Ocean, right? You make the connection between what do you notice in the image and what do you wonder? What questions come about because of that? I really like the idea, but I didn't necessarily want to give up a bell ringer. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. So after a little bit of running things, down on paper and going through it, kind of what I came up with is the following. My warm-up became just come in and get settled. Talk about what you need to talk about with your friends. as long as it's school appropriate, as long as you're on task doing whatever warm-up, whether it's keyboarding or a coding activity, just talk. Get whatever it is that you got on your mind off your mind. Clear up some of your whiteboard space. And then we were able to kind of create space for the next piece, which was our bell ringer. And that bell ringer became two things. I loved the idea of Brian's I Noticed and I Wonder, so I work something like that in on some days. It's a little bit of a social emotional piece too. It really gets kids to see things from other people's perspective. Even though we're all looking at the same thing, we might not see the same things. So I didn't want to lose that. So what I did is I tied that together with, we'll balance out those with a little bit of a bell ringer. And with our bell ringer, we do something called where were we, where are we going? It's just nothing more than a recall, right? Take stuff out of long-term memory, bring it back to your germane or your working memory. Where were we last class? What did we talk about? What were you working on specifically? Okay, where are we going from here? Is it going to be a daily activity where we just get to work and start doing our projects? Or is it going to be a lesson? What is our goal? Where are we going from here? That's kind of what we did. And I think when students came in and they saw the board, they knew all of those things, it really made a difference to them. And I think that clearing up of the whiteboard space, if you will, allowed them to actually recall information and immediately get to work building on the information they already had and the information they were getting that day versus kind of still having too many thoughts of other places in their brain. So after the bell ringer, we moved into our activity. Our activity really is just the lesson of the day. That lesson could be, again, just a work day. We've done where were we, where are we going? You know all what you need to know. Go ahead and get started. You have all your parts and pieces for your project. Get to work. If you have questions, come see me, ask a friend, but just get started. Sometimes that looks like a mini lesson of some sort, 10, 15, maybe even 20 minutes, the whole entire period or what's left of the period. For a mini lesson, whether it's skills or whatever we need to teach for the project, there leaves room for that. So we had 5 to 7 minutes of a warm-up, 5 to 7 minutes, if you will, of a bell ringer, 20 to 25 minutes of activity. The combination of all of that really got better work out of my students. And then finally, and I think just as importantly, if not the most important, is the feedback. Each day, we don't always get to it, but what we really try to do is a feedback, but that feedback is for me. I spend a lot of time creating connections with my students so that they're comfortable having these conversations, but ideally what they're sharing with me is how could I improve? Okay, not how could they improve, but things like, Mr. Mono, this project was really good, but I really thought if we went this direction or if we did this before that, it would make more sense. And when I get a lot of students sharing those same comments, that's the light bulb going off to me that, okay, what I thought was a great project in a particular order seemed great for me as an adult presenting it, but the way that the 5th and 6th grade mind is working, maybe that wasn't the best choice. So then we make those adjustments on the fly, and I say things like, hey guys, thanks for the feedback. I'm glad you gave it to me because I'm able to make the project a little bit better for you guys based on what you gave me for information. Your information is really valuable to me. Thank you. This project is going to be better because of you guys. Giving them that ownership and that freedom to know they can communicate with me without feeling rude or being disrespectful. They're not saying, mean things to me. They're giving me honest feedback as to what works for them so that we can build and make projects better. I think the combination of all of those things really, really worked well. All right. So why does it work? Great question. So in my opinion, after these conversations with Brian, I also ended up taking, after I made this implementation, I took a class with Karen Caldwell, a great instructor that I have had. And we actually talked about cognitive load. And I was able to share with her how I did that unknowingly without understanding what cognitive load theory was, but how I did it and the big difference that it made in my class. And I think that what happened was the overload and the confusion disappeared. Kids came in and they knew immediately to look at the board, get started with the warm-up, whether it's a keyboarding activity or a coding activity, but to get started with that warm-up and just talk. Get whatever's on your mind, whatever's on your chest, get it off, clear the whiteboard, Make room for what we are about to do so that I can get the best out of you. Once I did that, and then we implemented the bell ringer afterwards to bring that recall piece in, we were way better off. The recall without the clearing of the whiteboard was not nearly as effective. Yes, we were still bringing things back from long-term memory back into their working memory, but their working memory was so full that they weren't able to process a lot of the things I was talking about, and I was repeating myself over and over, stopping, redoing, reteaching. The ability to use that time at the beginning of class to clear everything, have the conversations you need to have, get it all out there. Now let's talk about what we need to talk about and put that into action. And when you're all done with that, let's talk about what worked and build on it. Let's talk about what didn't work, solutions to fixing that problem as a class, with everybody having a voice, making those adjustments, coming back next class, regrouping and starting all over. That made a big difference. I lost probably anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes of class time, instructional time, if you will. But what I gained out of it was way better. All right. So just to wrap this up, first of all, thank you for watching my video. I really appreciate you spending your time watching it. If you have any questions, my email has been on the screen. It is joemono1010@gmail.com. I'll gladly field any emails or any questions that you may have about cognitive load theory to the best of my ability, or even questions you might have about how I implemented or made those changes. I'll gladly share the presentation with you. There are some notes in the slides that you might be able to gain some information from. But if you have any questions or anything you want to share with me, maybe even help me out, by all means, feel free to email me. Thank you.